If a company wants to hire a neurodiverse person, they could be a huge asset, right? Maybe just give them a little more flexibility, take them on, give them something to do, and give them some leeway, right? Just find a project that they're passionate about, figure out how they want to contribute to it, and see what they can do. And you'll probably see some really good results if you give someone that autonomy. And it can be pretty incredible what someone can do.
Welcome to Still City Growth. I'm your host, Bill Ildenfritz. Each week, we'll explore the passions, expertise, and experiences of business owners and founders in the greater Pittsburgh area. Still City Growth is proudly sponsored by Murphy Business of Pittsburgh, committed to providing exceptional services to meet all your business needs. Let's dive in. Good morning. Today's guest has extensive career covering customer service, operations, project management, and more. He is a board-certified behavior analyst who founded and led an autism service organization. President at Acclaim Autism. Jamie Turner, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Great. I've been very excited, looking forward to this episode. So really glad you're here. You ready for our first question?
Yeah, let's dive in.
Good. What is the number one most important strategy for growing your business?
So for us, we're a healthcare company. So we're essentially a service company. So most important is to provide really good quality healthcare, which is what people come to us for. And to do that, we really need to treat people well. And I don't just mean the kids and the families, but our staff as well. Right? We're not going to provide that same, really personalized, high-level service unless our staff are happy and engaged and really enjoy what they're doing and enjoy being here. So, giving them the pay and benefits they deserve, keeping them engaged, fun activities, just anything to just really keep people engaged and happy is probably the most important thing for us.
I love that advice. I think it is so important. Tell me a little bit, what are some of the fun activities you do for your staff?
It depends on each clinic's a little bit different. We've got our Philadelphia team likes to go to a Phillies game once a year. Sometimes there's a nice truck that comes by in the summer. Just little kind of questions you put up on a whiteboard at the start of the day and people can answer, like, what's your dream vacation? What would you be doing, 10 years from now if you had a crystal ball? And people just kind of learn about different things that are important to their colleagues. And not every question's serious. Some of them are just more fun. So, hey, every little thing I think is really important.
Yeah, I think communication is essential with your employees and getting to know them and spending time. So I love that. I love the way you just started the show because I think that's really important. I think a lot of companies don't do enough of that and they miss that opportunity, especially in healthcare. I'm a little biased because I was in healthcare for many years, but especially in healthcare, you get to meet your staff because it does, like you said, they have the interaction with the families, in the kids, but the families, that's very important.
Yeah. We're a little different than a lot of healthcare. Yes, we're a healthcare company, but it's not like, going to the dentist twice a year. For us, you've got one person with your kid, 10 to sometimes 40 hours a week. So, that person can make a really big impact. And obviously they've got to be happy and enjoying their work.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we will learn a little more about your company here a little later on the show. But my understanding, obviously, your specialty is autism, correct?
Behavior analysis, which is the leading treatment of autism. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So why don't we kind of start there? Why don't you tell me a little bit, what is that? What is behavior analysis and with autism? Tell me a little bit about that, please.
Sure. Yeah. Applied behavior analysis is really natural. People sometimes think we're just playing with kids, but we're not. We kind of spend time to get to know kids, learn why they behave the way they do, what might be impeding their ability to learn a new skill. And just teach them new behaviors, new skills, alternative behaviors in a really kind of natural way. So it could be anything from communication skills, helping a kid, talk for the first time, other language skills. Social skills are really, really common. So making eye contact with people, raising your hand, ask a question in class, introducing yourself if you're at that point. It really is a wide range of things that unique to each person, but yeah, I'd say social skills, communication skills are the most common things that we work on.
Nice. What are some common misconceptions about autism that you encounter?
I find out, so a lot of our kids are really young when they come to us, and the families are really worried about their future, right? Like they say, like, my kid's not smart. Will he be able to, or she be able to take care of themselves when they're older? Those are very big misconceptions most of the time. So a lot of kids with autism are very, very smart and have skills that you and I maybe don't have. They're much, much better at, right? We just have to get to know him or her and what those skills are and help to uncover them. And they could be fantastic at certain things. We just don't know what those things are yet. So assuming someone's not smart because they can't communicate the way that we do, I'd say is a really big misconception.
Yeah. How do you explain the concept of the spectrum to people who are unfamiliar with it?
Yeah. So autism spectrum disorder, a spectrum, right? So on one side, very, very high functioning individuals, they can communicate very clearly. You may not be able to tell they have autism. On the other end of the spectrum, we'll call it lower functioning. So inability to communicate functionally, uh, perhaps might need a great deal of support, maybe throughout their lives. Um, but the vast majority of people are somewhere in between that, I'd say, on the spectrum.
You mentioned communication a few times, so let me ask you this question. What do you think the general public still misunderstands about autistic communication or behavior?
I would say still the communication piece. If they're talking to someone and someone doesn't give back a verbal response that we would expect, then there's maybe an assumption that that person doesn't understand them, maybe not quite smart enough to communicate back. But majority of the time, they probably do understand and understand very well. Just don't know how to give back a response that we would typically expect. So
Mhm.
I'd say just having some patience, some grace, and maybe trying some alternative ways of communication might be a little more effective.
Yeah, that's great. What kind of support do individuals with autism need most, in your opinion?
It's really a spectrum, so it's individualized to each person. Language and communication are probably the biggest things. Um, at a young age, we typically work on that kind of stuff, just preparing someone to get into school for the first time, make eye contact with peers, talk, functionally communicate, like communicate when it's time to go to the bathroom, for example. I would say as someone gets older, like adolescence, kind of teen years, social skills are by far the most common thing that we hear. We have families coming to us where majority of the time their kids can communicate, they can talk, but they really don't know how to make friends and develop those relationships. And they want to, they just don't know how. So I'd say that that's pretty common and something that we try a great deal to work on at that age.
How about any like small changes that can make a big impact in classrooms or work environment that people can do to help people with autistic?
Uh, Being open minded and trying to get to know what the barrier really is to learning. Um, right. There could be any multitude of reasons that someone kind of behaves the way they do. So I would say seek a professional help if possible. And yeah, people can do assessments and figure out why someone's behaving the way they do. It may not be so intuitive if you're not really looking for it and asking the right questions. Um, I heard some great advice from someone that runs a nonprofit that told me, for these really big companies, if you take like a job description and give it, and try and fill it with a diverse individual, it may not be the best fit. It might be like a square peg in a round hole. Um, if a company wants to hire a diverse person, they could be a huge asset, right? Maybe just give them a little more flexibility, take them on, give them something to do, and give them some leeway, right? Just find a project that they're passionate about, figure out how they want to contribute to it, and see what they can do. And you'll probably see some really good results if you give someone that autonomy. And it can be pretty incredible what someone can do.
I agree with that advice and I love it. And, I think that in general, just getting to know somebody, as you kind of mentioned in the beginning, even with your staff, just getting to know people. We all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, and you can bring out the best in people with a little bit of patience and understanding, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yep.
What's one moment or story in your work that really stuck with you so far in your career?
I didn't see it firsthand, but I'll just never forget this. And so there was a kid in one of our clinics who was with us for a number of years. nonverbal for 2 years. And after 2 years of working with this kid, this one person had been with him the whole time, right? Like, I don't know, 30, 35 hours a week for 2 years. And he finally spoke for the first time. And, this technician that was working with him was just brought to tears. She just started crying. She was just so happy. She cared about him so much. And, just hearing that story and how it really moved someone was really, really impactful. And I talk to families all the time that tell me similar stories, but hearing it from one of our staff members that was, I know worked really hard for 2 years, that was pretty incredible.
Yes, you make a difference for sure. So thank you for what you do, by the way. What have the individuals you work with taught you over the years?
Everyone's talk teaches me something. Um, the patience, the grace, the not going into a situation with some kind of preconceived idea. I think that's valuable, not just for working with a neurodiverse population, but for anybody really, in any situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can our listeners do to better support autism awareness and acceptance in their communities?
Just be open-minded. I keep hearing more and more stories about people that, they have a family member, relative, friend, someone with autism. Just take the time and get to know them. I talked with a former colleague from business school who said, like, hey, my cousin has autism. And, every time I see him, he lives in another country, he just kind of comes and sits next to me and I don't know what to do. Right. And I said, well, he probably likes you and probably wants to get to know you. Just he's not verbal, can't talk. Just take some time. If he can't talk, doesn't mean you can't talk to him. Right. Look for a signal that he understands. Look for another way to communicate. Could be a picture book, pointing at things. It could be anything, but just try and take your time. And like you said, just get to know someone. And I think you'll find it really fulfilling and rewarding just to kind of get to know someone.
Long time ago. I didn't even know I love working with children just in general. I hate to say, but I like working with children, more than adults, talking to children, saying more than adults. And I didn't know it. But there was two kids, two boys, and one was autistic, and I did not even know. And I was like talking to him like in the corner of a big party, mom and dad were around. But anyway, I just find it, I found it just interesting conversation, and he opened up more and he opened up more. And I learned from him. Like you said, it's amazing. He was very young, I don't know, 7 or 8, but he taught me in 30 minutes just different things, how smart they really are. It's amazing.
Yeah. Each person has different strengths. And, I struggled with our insurance billing when we first started. It's a really complicated kind of thing. But you ask someone who maybe you don't even realize has autism to work on it. And, because this person happens to be good with attention to detail and, procedures and things. And wow, it's like day and night, right? Just kind of turn things around. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. What gives you hope when it comes to the future of autism inclusion?
I look at all the advocacy in the field that's really, parents have done a really great job over the last 20, 30 years of just advocating for, coverage for all the different procedures that, their children might need. That has done wonders with opening up access to care. I look at all the great people entering the field and studying master's programs to go in and be licensed clinicians. That number keeps increasing. It's nowhere near enough to meet the demand, but it's getting there. As a newer field, we need people to enter the field and that have that expertise and that training. And, we can help give them the practical experience, but, people need the education to begin with. And, you keep seeing more people entering the field as, they keep having more friends and relatives that have autism. And it's fantastic to just see what's out there and what people have done.
Yeah. No, I agree. So you mentioned organizational resources, if you are a parent struggling a little bit, are there any organizational resources, events that you would definitely recommend to them?
Yeah, I'd say a good starting point is always the child's primary care provider or developmental pediatrician. Uh, depending where they are, they can give a long list of service providers, nonprofits, early intervention providers. It's a good starting point, but I would always encourage connecting with nonprofits in the area who have other resource lists as well that might not be on those medical lists. And just do your research online, right? Just, Google's your friends, ChatGPT is your friend. It can be. Um, yeah. And just, see what's out there. There's a ton of local organizations in each area, and they keep kind of sprouting up. But I would encourage parents to do their research about each place, make sure that whatever medical procedure someone's recommending is backed by science. Um, there's some things popping up called pseudoscience where, people say this, this can really cure your child, right? And there is no cure for autism, at least not right now. And we need to make sure whatever we decide to treat our children with is backed by some kind of evidence and not, just some guy that comes up with something because he wants to make money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a little scary.
Right? It can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. What is one challenge our listener community could help you solve?
Well, I understand you're in Pittsburgh, and we're in central and eastern PA, so we're
Yeah.
kind of working our way west throughout the state over time as we continue to grow. So if anyone's in a related field, whether it's a medical service with the autism community, educator maybe, other nonprofit organizations, or just advocates in the space, we love to talk to them. So just feel free to reach out and start a conversation, and we'll see where it goes.
Nice. We kind of mentioned kind of moving here a little bit. So tell me, where do you see your company in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, continuing to grow geographically. We're trying not to grow too fast because we want to manage the quality, and it's always a balance, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to be on the phone with some parents saying, I need services for my kids right now, and we don't have enough staff to give those services in every area all the time. They just, there's again not enough people in the field yet.
Yeah.
But training up enough people to provide quality services while still growing to meet the demand of the families that are out there. Yeah, we'll keep working on that and keep expanding little by little throughout the state as well as other kind of nearby states as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So the first half we kind of learned from you. The second half I want to learn more about you, especially about your company and things like that. So, but first, take me back in time. When little Jamie, did you know you'd be running and growing a company?
It's funny. I always wanted to run a company ever since I was a teenager, but I didn't actually do it until I was in my, I don't know, late 30s. So yeah, I guess I started my career after college in retail banking, funny enough. And I worked as a project manager, setting up new operation centers in various countries around the world. I loved it. I got to travel, which is one of my hobbies. At some point, the company I worked for was sold to another one and stayed on for a long time, helped them throughout that merger, and kind of decided banking wasn't for me. I just wanted a different field. So went back to school, did my MBA full time, loved it. I like to say I took a non-linear path to get where I am now, because after business school, I kind of did the opposite of what every business school grad does and worked for a nonprofit and, put business skills to use, like process management, financial management in the nonprofit world. Loved what I did for about 6 years and got married, moved to Pennsylvania where my now wife lives, and decided, what, maybe now is a good time to start a company, which I know I've always wanted to do. Got the experience, got some skills, have a network, and, here I am. I had a friend in another state who had run a behavioral healthcare company. He helped me get started, told me about these long wait lists for services. And, I was already in a related space in the nonprofit world. So I thought, what, this is great. Why don't I just tackle this challenge? And, during COVID, I was kind of tied to my desk and just working on policies and procedures. And, here we are now.
Yeah. I love the entrepreneur spirit. So tell me what's your company? What's your company's name? What locations you're in? Tell me a little bit about it, please.
Yeah, we're called Acclaim Autism. Most of our clients do have autism, but we do have some with other disorders as well, like ADHD is pretty common. We started off in Chester County, Pennsylvania. We've grown throughout central and eastern PA, so everywhere from Lancaster over to Philly. But we kind of just keep going west. We're in York pretty soon, as well as the Harrisburg area. So just kind of keep growing. We provide applied behavior analysis to children from ages 0 to 20. We also provide social skills groups. We do a lot of parent coaching to make sure parents get the support that they need because they've got a really, really tough job. So we do a lot of that. We try and connect parents with other parents and build little communities as well because they need that support as well.
Yeah, I agree. What makes you different?
So we're pretty different. I describe the field as a dichotomy where you've got all these kind of small mom and pop shop, ABA companies where, someone really well intentioned, goes out, starts a company because they don't really like the state of the field and the way it is. And, they provide great service, right? High quality care to a very small group of kids, but they don't have the business skills to grow beyond, a handful or 10 kids or so. But again, great service. And on the other side, you've got, the private equity backed companies. They're more profit driven, scaling companies as quickly as possible. Some of them also care about quality as well, not all. And then you've got us kind of up the middle where we have really good, well-trained people in the ABA space, in the business space, and we're growing at a moderate pace. So we still provide that high quality care, but we do have those business skills to be able to kind of grow as well as fast as we're comfortable with.
I mean, you kind of talked about a little bit, what drew you to this company? So you want to start a company, but what made you start this kind of company?
Yeah, I was working for a nonprofit in New York. I was on the operations side, and a piece of what I did was helping kids with disabilities get into college, and you know, kind of behind the scenes. And I loved it, but I would hear from parents sometimes when I'd visit call centers and things about just all the frustrations of raising a kid with disabilities who's great and beautiful, but there's just so many barriers to getting kids the support that they need. It's just incredible. And it was just really, really frustrating to keep hearing that. So decided to do something about it. And luckily my friend who had run a similar company, kind of corroborated that and said, hey, like we have long wait lists for this particular service, which is still relatively new, in the medical space. So, give this a shot. It'll make an impact. And, it's really needed. So I thought, why not? That seems perfect.
Yeah, great. What's a typical day like for you?
Not typical. um, yeah, it could be anything, anything from uh, maybe opening up a new clinic, going and helping kind of get that started, working with insurance companies on whatever we need to work with them on, whether it's getting more referrals or whether it's, processing insurance claims, which always has its ups and downs. Uh, there could be staff recruiting. I don't always do that myself, but sometimes I'll jump in and help with, certain key positions. Just making sure people are happy and, running focus groups or visiting clinics and just talking to families, spending some time with kids. No 2 days really the same, which is kind of fun and I enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. How many locations do you have?
We just opened, let me think, our fourth actual clinic where we see clients last week. Um,
Nice.
yep. And we've got a fifth one opening later this year. A lot of what we do is home and community services. So we'll go out to like schools, daycares, patients' houses, different places. So we do that throughout roughly half the state right now. In addition to kids coming to one of our four clinics.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the growth. That's very impressive. Very impressive. Tell me, you kind of mentioned, but what all services do you provide? What all what are your ideal clients?
Yeah, applied behavior analysis is almost exclusively what we do. It's almost everything, and it looks a little different for each client, but it's essentially play-based therapy with a lot of kids and helping them develop those skills and behaviors that they'll need in order to succeed throughout their lives. So that's most of it. The social skills groups for the older kids, we do less of those because more kids get services early on, which helps them later in life. But we still do services for some of those older kids, some parent training for parents, whether or not their kids get ABA services through us or not. Parents can still benefit from that training. So we also do some diagnosing. So if you think your kid has autism, we can do that. It's a combination of telehealth as well as coming to our clinics. And we have some online training courses, which help families if their kid was newly diagnosed and understanding what that journey looks like. So we also do some training for school staff. So, sometimes a school will come to us and say, like, hey, your staff that you send to our classroom, they're really well trained. They do a great job helping this little kid. Can you train our staff? Like, we need some help. And so sometimes we'll go on like a professional development day and just provide a, full day of training. So they're special education teachers, or sometimes they're standard classroom teachers as well.
Nice. A lot of good services to help the community for sure. What strategy or approaches do you find most effective when supporting autistic individuals?
It's really individualized. It can be different for each and every client. Um, sometimes if a kid's behaving a certain way, like maybe just kind of keep screaming, or um, behaving in a way that may not be socially appropriate. One example, they might just want attention, right? So, little kid flops on the floor, starts screaming, pounding the floor with their hands. It could be attention seeking. So if we've gotten to know him enough and we know that that's the function of his behavior, then maybe we'll just wait, right? And just not give him that attention. And eventually he'll learn that's not a good way to get attention. Or maybe there's another more appropriate way that we can teach, over time, like asking for something like, hey, can you play with me?
Yeah. What advice do you have for parents whose child has just been diagnosed?
Seek APA services as early as possible. Um, Depending where they live, there could be wait lists anywhere from a few months to a few years. And early intervention research has shown that the earlier you get help for your kids, um, the bigger the impact long term on their ability to function later in life. So, 3-year-olds are pretty common to get diagnosed now. Primary care providers have really good screeners to help identify warning signs of autism pretty early on. So, as soon as you get that diagnosis, number one, keep that paperwork, stay organized. And number two, start working the phones to find an ABA company that you think will be a good fit for your child, as well as providing services as soon as possible. Right. I wouldn't just call one or two companies. I would get on multiple wait lists and, try and get help as soon as possible.
Yeah. What you just gave some great advice, and you actually answered a couple of my questions all in one. So that was very impressive. But if I am a parent, I'm overwhelmed. My child's got diagnosed. What kind of company am I looking for?
You're looking for probably an ABA provider. The person that gives the diagnosis, whether it's a psychologist or someone else, they'll probably say, first and foremost, go and get ABA, right? So find an applied behavior analysis or ABA provider that is able to provide services in the setting that's needed. So if there's behavior issues at home, they'll want someone to come to their house and help. If the behaviors are quite severe, like self-injurious behavior, things like that, they may prefer to send their kid to a clinic for part of the day. Which is a good setting as well. That can be around other kids of a similar age and ability, which also has social benefits. But finding someone who can meet the specific needs of their child in the area and setting where they need is really what they're looking for.
Excellent. What about if they're, you said about the wait list? What can I do in the meantime?
I like to encourage parents to join support groups, get started with parent training. We do support groups through telehealth for families that are on our wait list, so they can at least meet other parents, also get to know some ABA strategies that might help depending on their child. And we also offer an online self-paced training course, which we give away for free to families just so they can go and start to learn about the ABA journey and what that's going to look like. I'd also advise them to just mentally prepare themselves for what's coming. I find that parents sometimes get frustrated where they sit on a wait list for months, and then all of a sudden some company has staff available and they have to be really prepared and ready to move, right? They're going to have someone at their house doing an assessment, getting to know their child. And then pretty quickly after that, they'll have someone in their house giving treatment to their child. And it can be a big life adjustment to have a stranger in your house for, 9, 15, maybe 30 hours a week. In extreme cases, maybe 40 hours a week. So just getting used to that and how quickly that all happens can be a bit of a challenge. So just start to mentally prepare for that.
Yeah, that's great advice. So kind of maybe elaborate a little bit more on that. What are some of the tips you can give? Because you're right, I might be overwhelmed, thinking this may last. I'm not going to get help, and like you said, all of a sudden, boom, here it is. So what are some things I can do as a parent to start preparing myself?
Stay engaged with providers that are you're on the wait list with, and just try and get a sense of, okay, how much longer is it going to be, right? We can't always quote a time frame because staffing is so variable, but am I second on the wait list? Am I number 200 on the wait list? Just try and give me a sense and stay engaged along the way, as well as just engaging with whatever resources are out there. There's, the telehealth sessions that I mentioned. There's in-person events, which are always beneficial. Philly has an autism play date once a year in August. York County has the autism walk once per year. Autism York puts on a really great kind of nonprofit event where families get together, kids have fun, just start to get engaged in the community and meet other families. And I think it'll be really helpful.
Yeah. So now you have that provider coming to my house. What are some of the things I should do as a parent to help and assist with this process?
Stay engaged in as many sessions as they possibly can, as well as implementing whatever strategies the team decides on. It's a partnership between us as well as the parent to decide on strategies for each kid and implement those same strategies between sessions, right? And in the example I gave earlier of a kid lying on the floor, screaming, pounding the floor with his hands, if he or she's looking for attention, don't give them attention, right? Give them attention for something more socially appropriate. And if our staff does that when they're in the house, the parent should do that between sessions as well. That's the most effective way to see results.
Yes. What do you think there are what are the common mistakes parents do make? When your staff's not around, what some of the mistakes they make?
I would say the most common attitude that we hear that's maybe not the most helpful is, your job, Acclaim Autism, is to fix my child, right? And we're not there to fix him or her, right? He's great and talented in his own way. We just need to figure out what that is and help with appropriate behaviors, right? As well as skills. So it's a partnership, and everyone needs to be on the same page, whether it's in the session, outside the session. Stay engaged in the treatments, align on what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it, and make sure that you have a seat at the table in talking about what those goals are for your child, because it's really important. It's your child and it's their future. And we all need to be part of this together as a team.
Excellent. You mentioned just about preparing and paperwork wise and stuff like that. So maybe between the time you're on the wait list and they're actually there, what are some maybe things, notes or data or doctor visits? What should I have ready to go so when they come in house, I can hand them a folder and kind of help them through it?
Yeah, it's amazing how organized some parents are. It's fantastic. And some not so much. But yeah, every insurance company has their own requirements. There's no real standardization with medical right now. So keeping for sure that original diagnosis will be really important, which it's a long document. It shows, an assessment was used, data was collected. Little Johnny came to us with a suspicion of autism. Here's the test I administered. Here's the data I collected. I'm now diagnosing little Johnny with autism, right? That's probably the gold source document that parents should keep somewhere safe and have ready, because insurance will likely ask for it at some point. All those other kind of doctor's visits and follow-ups, yeah, those are important too. Keep those. But the original diagnosis is most important. Probably a list of any providers that are currently treating their child is also important. So who the primary care provider is, what's their phone number, their other contact information. Is there a speech therapist? Is there an occupational therapist? Who are these people? What do they do? What's their contact information? Just staying organized and being able to share that will probably reduce the time to service.
Excellent. Excellent advice. What's the most challenging part of your work, and what gives you the most hope?
The most challenging part is always staffing in this field. A service company, we can only grow as quickly as we can recruit, retain, and train staff. So constantly balancing, the kids that we have in service as well as the staff is by far the most challenging. And you can't just sort of match people with people. You have to match the most appropriate people with the most appropriate people. So if a family wants a male or female therapist, they get a male or female therapist. If they want someone of a similar cultural background, we can do our best to accommodate things like that as well. So it's pretty challenging, but I would say I have hope with all the people entering the field and how diverse they are, as well as our clients are very diverse. And, the more we grow and the denser we get, the easier it is to accommodate all those different requests and make sure that we can be fully staffed.
Yeah. And what gives you the most hope?
Yeah, again, just all those people entering the field and yeah, how great and well intentioned they are. As a mission driven organization, we want people that are similarly minded, and just about everyone working here has that same mission to really help kids with autism and families to improve their lives. And just seeing that in people really gives me a lot of hope.
That's really good. What are the biggest gap in support service you see right now?
One of the biggest ones is technology. So I talked a lot about staffing, but technology is for us has been a good enabler to help with staffing. So ABA companies, we've existed a lot less than other medical specialties, right? Dentists have been around for a long time. Primary care providers even longer. Uh, ABA is a relatively new field, and the software to really run an ABA company doesn't really exist yet. There's kind of siloed applications that are out there that do certain things, and some of them are good, most of them are not so good. But just kind of piecing together all these pieces of software has been really challenging. And we got to the point where we hired some developers and built our own software, and that's really been helping. We're nowhere near where we need to be, but we made really, really good progress.
Yeah, that's really good. A couple of reflection questions here. What have you learned about yourself through working with autistic individuals?
I've learned I'm a lot more maybe emotional and empathetic than I maybe was in previous careers. I want to say yes to everything, and it's if something might help this child, I really want to say yes and just give them everything. And when we first started, I said yes to everything, and financially you can't say yes to everything. And I learned a hard lesson, and just we really need to balance resources with need, and find that good balance to be a well-run organization.
Yeah, no, I understood. Is there a moment that really changed how you think about autism?
I don't think there was any one moment, right? I've always known that neurodiverse people have really strong skills. I will say we have people working here who have autism, and they provide fantastic service. And, just trying to figure out what the right role is for them, right? Some of them are therapists for other kids with autism, and they can relate, it's like a peer. They're fantastic. We have somebody else who is a really great trainer, right? And really good at kind of conveying skills that he's already learned. He's just incredible. But, maybe not so good at other skills like managing people, right? And giving feedback. So yeah, just kind of, learning what those strengths and weaknesses are, I think has been most important.
Yeah. What's one thing you wish every listener would take away from this conversation?
Be empathetic and understanding and approach any individual with an open mind, right? Just look for everybody has strengths that, you and I don't have, and everyone has weaknesses that you and I don't have, and treat people as individuals. And that's what they are.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to do any kind of a shout out to your team or anything, or just a thank you in general or anything?
Hey, the team's fantastic. We have come a really long way, where at the start we had this team who were great at what they did and provided great service, but maybe not as well on the management side. And now we've kind of found that right balance. We have really a strong team of people who can manage, can provide really good clinical quality services, and we're really in the right place with the right people, which hasn't been the case for a long time, and it's fantastic. So kudos to everyone who is here and providing great work.
Yeah. If you can go back in time and meet yourself the day you founded your company, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, I would say to do the right level of planning. So I find a lot of people go and start a company, especially ABA companies, and kind of build the airplane while it's in the air, right? Just figure out what they want to do and just start doing it. Uh, I kind of went the opposite way and planned out way too much, right? I spent 18 months on policies and procedures and, all kinds of things while we worked on our licenses. And, even the best laid plans are made to be broken. So just find what that right balance is. Maybe have a budget, have an idea where you're going, have a couple of policies that we know we're going to need, especially if you're a service company that's managing people. And, do your best to stick to it, but don't be afraid to make small changes along the way, because as you scale, things are going to change anyway. So, find that right balance.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So you talked a little about traveling. So what do you do in your free time? What do you enjoy?
Well, I've got 2 young girls at home. They take up most of my time. They're 1 and 3, so they're still at that age where it's a time suck, but in a really good way, because they're a lot of fun. So yeah, I'd say spending time with them, exercising. I take the girls to the pool every weekend, which, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Time with family and exercise. It's great. Traveling. I have the travel bug, and it's never going to go away. I lost count of how many countries I've actually visited. I love traveling. I take a few trips a year.
Yeah. Tell me, 'cause I love the travel too. So tell me, what are a couple highlights? What are a couple great moments you had?
So way back when I was in retail banking, I was sent to the Philippines to open up some operation centers, and I've been back there maybe 20, 25 times since.
Wow.
Just love the culture, how nice the people are. The weather's great. It's fantastic. I just took my family to Switzerland, actually. I have a friend who got married there. It was from there, and we had our first real family vacation with just my wife and I and the 2 young girls. And it was just incredible, just spending a week of focused time, or 9 days actually, with the 4 of us, which we've never had the luxury of doing. I combined my family with my love of travel, and it was amazing.
Yeah, excellent. Is there some place you haven't been that you definitely want to go to?
That's a very long list. I would say Egypt is somewhere I want to go and see the pyramids. I've done most of Southeast Asia, but I do want to see Vietnam. I love Europe, so just seeing kind of more places in Europe would be helpful as well.
Love it. I love the Egypt. That's something I want to definitely go and see for sure. So if our listeners obviously are listening and they need some help or support or whatever, or support you, what's the best way to connect with you, sir?
I would say email is pretty good. So my email is jturner@acclaimautism.com, ACCLAIM autism.com. Or social media, LinkedIn is great as well. And if you find me on LinkedIn, that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you, Jamie. I thought this was a great episode. I personally have learned a lot. I think your company is amazing. Most importantly, you're really helping and giving a resource that the community needs. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bill. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you to the audience. If you learned something today or laughed, please tell someone about this podcast. Again, Jamie, thank you. This has been another exciting episode of Steel City Growth. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Steel City Growth. Thanks for joining us. For show notes and more, visit steelcitygrowth.live. Steel City Growth is proudly sponsored by Murphy Business of Pittsburgh, offering expert guidance in buying, selling, and valuing businesses to help you achieve your goals. Until next time.